Hello, welcome to a new video. If you are new here, my name is Amandine and I've been living in Singapore for 4 years. On this channel, I like to share about anything that's happening in Singapore. In this video, we are going to discuss budget, monthly budget living in Singapore. In the month of February, I have recorded all my expenses going around in Singapore and spending my money. So I'm going to share that with you and also giving you some other options if you are planning on moving to Singapore and you are wondering what your budget living in Singapore is going to be like. So let's start with a big number. 1 month living in Singapore, I spent $6,902. So this is from the 22nd of January to the 25th of February. So a disclaimer already, the fact that I recorded all my expenses during that period is maybe not the best because it's including of the Chinese New Year period and it's usually a period where we have more gathering, we go out a bit more often and also we give gifts. So you can see this budget as the higher margin. Usually I spend a bit less, especially concerning food and transportation expenses. But let's just dive right in with home expenses. Cost of living in Singapore is quite expensive and it's mostly due to housing. It's gonna take a big part in your budget. So in my case, I'm living in a 2-bedroom condo situated not too central. I did recently a house tour if you want to see this dedicated video, but basically for the rent of the unit we are paying 4.2k. But we have a flatmate that is paying an all-included rent, which is 1,700 per month, making the price of this master bedroom to 2.5k per month. And we are sharing halfway with my boyfriend, so my part is $1,250. Then beside that, we are also sharing the utilities and internet bills. So for the month of February, for gas, electricity and water, we had to pay $154. So I paid for half of that, which was $78. And then for internet, we are having a subscription that is $40 per month, so I pay $20. Aircon maintenance is something that you have to do every 3 months in Singapore. I just put $15 aside every month to account for that. But basically, each time you are gonna pay about $20 per aircon. And you have to do that 4 times a year, so it's about $320 per year. And then lastly, for the home expenses, we have a cleaning lady that is coming recently every 2 weeks, and for that my share was $118. So now if you are looking at your own budget, you have to consider which kind of apartment you want to rent. You have the option to rent an HDB or a condo. HDB will often be less expensive and you can also consider flat sharing, so that's what I'm doing to keep our rent under 2k per month. If you're new to Singapore and on your own, I will definitely encourage you to go for flat sharing because it's a good way also to make friends. And consideration between HDB and condo is often down to the facilities. So HDB comes with no facilities and in condo you can get a few facilities such as a pool, like a gym. So if you're planning on using those two, I definitely suggest that you go for condo. Living in Singapore and renting in Singapore is still going to be quite expensive. I think start to minimum 1.5k maybe for HDB in a decent place, to easily 6k for a studio or a 2-bedroom. Concerning the bills in Singapore, you can just go with the main provider, which is SP Group. That's why we have our water, electricity and gas under the same bill. When you first open the account, you have to deposit $500 that you get back when you close the account, when you leave Singapore or you move somewhere else. So this is just something to take into account for the first time, but the rest of the time it's quite worry free. And then for the cleaning lady, we found her through Helpling. I will put a code in the description box so you can give it a try if you want. But let's move on to the most interesting of the budget, which is the food budget. This can go one way or the other way really easily. In my case, I really enjoy exploring new restaurants and new places. So I usually have very cheap eat during the week, and then on the weekend I'm gonna maybe try new places and spend a little bit more. So for the month of February, I spent $929 on eating out. I have a more detailed breakdown actually. So for breakfast, I spent $139. With the most expensive was a bagel for $22. And then the least expensive is probably the pain au chocolat or the pandan waffle. But most of the time I would just spend $3 or $5 for breakfast, just like grabbing something to eat or maybe something to drink like an orange juice. For lunch, the most expensive I spent is $74.5. There are a few more like $62 or $44, but the rest is around $7. This is what I usually spend when I go eat around Suntec. So Suntec is a mall, so usually lunch are a bit more pricey than if you are working in a less central area. Then you will have maybe like food court and hawker centers option, but in Suntec there isn't much. So for lunch in total I spent $346, and then for dinner $323, so about the same. The most expensive I spent for dinner is $36. And then lastly, usually maybe in the afternoon I would get some snacks, so I spent $121 on snacks this month. So it can be cookie, waffles, fruits, bringing me to what I spent on grocery shopping this month. This month on groceries I spent $286, giving us a grand total of $1,215 on food for the month of February. I did quite a fair bit of grocery shopping this month because I did cook at home also a little bit. That's why it's quite expensive, but usually it's like closer to like maybe $50 per week, so closer to 200 than to 300. But this will depend a lot on what you are buying. Like for myself, I really enjoy like expensive fruits, and I buy also cheese, for example, so might like spike the budget a bit. Depending on your budget, you are gonna consider eating at different places. Hawker centers are often the places where you can find the least expensive dishes, so meals are gonna range between $4 and $8. Then there are also food courts that are sometimes offering the same choices but maybe slightly more expensive. And then there are restaurants, and at restaurants you are easily gonna spend more than $20 per meal. When it's not Chinese New Year and I actually control my food budget, I would say it's closer to $800 per month. So I allow myself to spend $10 per meal plus a little bit of room for breakfast and snacks. If you have a very tight budget, then you have no choice but to spend less. But if you can afford, I would like still recommend you to try like a bit of everything and see what you enjoy. For the groceries in Singapore, it's actually often not cheaper to cook at home because it's also like consume some time, where if you go eat outside you don't have to care about the cooking time and also to clean up. So that's why like personally I really enjoy eating out in Singapore. But some people might consider that it's not always so healthy, so that's why like cooking at home sometimes is still good. But groceries can get expensive. Usually where I go do my grocery shopping is Giant, Fair Price and Cold Storage. Cold Storage is often the one who is gonna have the most expensive prices, but sometimes they also offer more choices, especially if you are looking for imported products. So that's for the food budget in Singapore. Now let's talk about transportation expenses. So there are two kind of categories. First, the public transport and then personal transport. I take bus most of the time, especially for my daily commute. For the month of February on public transport, I spent $89, and then I took quite a few Grab. Usually I don't take as many. I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Grab for $167. The cheapest ride was $11, and then the most expensive was $34 when I went to the air show in the morning. So this next month I'm definitely cutting down on that. Usually my transportation budget is closer to $200 per month instead of the $256 for this month. If you have any question concerning your budget living in Singapore and the cost of living in Singapore, you can let me know in the comment section and I will try to answer your question if I can. But we are going to move on to the next section, which is healthcare/insurance. I spent $405 on that. First, as a woman, I'm taking the pill. In Singapore, I usually order it twice a year, and the total for the year is $540. So it's about $45 per month for 128 days pill box. And beside that, I also have an insurance. So I have insurance with AIA for critical illness, and I pay $360 for that. I also have an insurance that is provided by my work, so it's covering inpatient, and also I can claim for some of the outpatient visits. Didn't need to see the doctor this month, so that's why there is nothing else in that budget for this month. But usually I would say, especially if you don't have a dedicated outpatient insurance, to put maybe at least $200 per month aside. In the month of February, I had to pay also for some subscription, like my phone subscription. So I'm with Giga, which is an online provider, and I pay $20. For $20 I get about 100 gigabytes, so it's quite good. Then I have other like miscellaneous subscription like my Apple Cloud. I have an AI subscription, and I also pay for Epidemic Sound to use for some of my videos. I do have Netflix, but I actually don't pay for that. My sister pay for that, so thank you. And then I have a miscellaneous section. This one really going to depend on your lifestyle. So in my case, I spent $40 on gift. It was for breakfast for my colleagues, and then I gave an angbo to my cleaning lady. I spent also on travel, so I paid for my Bangkok flight, which was $322. I'm going in April, so definitely gonna bring you with me. And then $30 for a tour to Penang. We are going to Penang next weekend. I pay for the flight, I think in January, so that's why it's not included in that budget. And then I spent on video equipment. I didn't do any kind of shopping, but I spent $100 on that. And then I spent some money also on entertainment. So I spent $30 to go to the air show, which was really nice. But I would say, as you can see, I only have this expense as entertainment. Most of the things in Singapore are free, or they are related to food. So in total for other, I spent $529. This could be reduced to like maybe $100 if you just do a little bit of shopping and you don't travel. It's really depending on what you can afford. And same for the next section, which is going to be including taxes, investment and saving. I would say up until now, all the expenses were kind of like necessary, like you have to have them in your budget. Taxes, investment and saving, you cannot cut down on taxes, but saving and investment are going to be really depending on your income. In my case, I dedicate about 3k per month on those. So I will explain how I break it down. So first, taxes. I put aside $450 per month, which is about 5% of my income. Tax season is coming soon, so I just want to make sure that when it's time to pay my taxes, I'm able to do so. So that's why I have this part of my budget where it's not into saving or investment, it's just put aside. Then I have an investment with AIA. I put $1,250 per month into that plan. I put about like 15k per year. I've been having this plan for 2 years. So far I've put 30k. I think my next premium is like by the end of the year, maybe October, November. But so far I'm quite happy with this plan because I got 9k in returns and bonuses. It's the first plan I got. It's a 10-year plan, so I'm only in year 2. So I still have some time to pay before I actually can touch that money. But so far so good. I'm planning on having this as a retirement plan. So it's really long term. As an expat in Singapore, you can choose to just like spend all your money, especially if you're not planning on staying in Singapore. But in my case, I plan on maybe retiring in Singapore, so I must make sure that I can actually afford it. And I have also another saving plan with UOB. This one is 4 years, and it's an income saving plan, meaning that I pay $1,275 per month into that plan, and after 4 years I'm gonna get a monthly income from it, so it's gonna be about $300 per month. I got this one quite recently, I think it was last year, November or December. That's how I get my budget of $2,975 on taxes, investment and saving, for a total of monthly budget to $6,902 per month living in Singapore. You can see how half of that is actually dedicated to taxes, investment and saving. So I would say the necessary spending is around 3k. That's the budget to afford living in Singapore. Most of the time I don't think that I'm living such a luxurious lifestyle, neither I'm really living on the cheap. I'm just trying to like enjoy life and like spend where I want to spend without throwing my money out the window. There are definitely ways to spend more and ways to spend less. It's just depending on your own needs and on lifestyle and on budget. But I hope that this video was insightful for you to have an understanding on the cost of living in Singapore in 2024. I did different monthly budget living in Singapore the previous year, and it was a bit cheaper, so we can see that life and prices are indeed increasing in Singapore. My income did increase throughout the years also, so all in all it kind of like balanced. But just let me know your budget living in Singapore and if you have any tips or advice. If you are looking to move and live in Singapore, just a reminder that I have released an ebook about New to Singapore, your all-time guide of living in Singapore, where you can find all those tips about living in Singapore, cost of living, moving to Singapore, working in Singapore, work passes, a lot of my personal experience, official information in a comprehensive expensive way to make your integration in Singapore easy. So you can check it out, but that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video if it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!